I want to tell a story about the first time I met you, Frank. We're all around this table, Keatsman, Lebo, Nick, myself, and you just pick us off. You go, blank you, blank you, blank you, and you get to me and you go, I don't even blank and know you. And I thought, this is great.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is brought to you by the generosity of our friends with the Haverty family, the Illig family, the Kearney-Warnell Foundation, UMB Bank trustee, the Sherman family, the Cockrell family, Kansas City Orthopedic Institute, Don and Mary Doherty, and the Bergman family. Thank you.
Welcome once again to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City, where we talk about the people, places, and things that make this such a great place to live. Don't forget, you can get the podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, etc. And we are on YouTube, so you can see our beautiful faces. Right, Bryan Truta?
No. What is this? I'm on the radio.
Yeah.
Why? There's cameras everywhere. I hate this.
You usually are doing all the questioning, okay? You're
Yeah.
asking, not today, you're not,
And
pal.
you know what? I got to say, I don't like this because I'm looking over here and he's got a whole
wait.
notepad full of stuff. And I'm going,
Wait,
is this
hold
all
it.
about me?
Hold it.
Is it? No.
One,
No. What?
Two. How many pages we got there? 2.5
Two and a-
pages.
My life is not that interesting. I don't know what the heck you're finding.
Guess what? You're going to find out.
Bring
Bryan
it on,
Truta,
baby.
of course, on the bridge, basically, 90.9, the bridge, KCUR, correct?
Yeah.
So, and you have worked virtually for every media conglomerate and radio station in Kansas City for all practical purposes. haven't you?
There's one that I haven't. I have not worked for Intercom, now known as Odyssey.
Yes.
That's the one. And I've flirted with them a couple of times. They actually tried to steal us away back in the 810 days, right, to go work on KMBZ. I
That's
think
right.
every one of us tried to poach us, and I just never made it over there.
Yeah, right. That was when we'll talk about the poaching, of course, with Jason Whitlock and Bill
Yeah.
Moss and Tim Grunhard. My two boys abandoned me, left me at 810 all by myself, and went over to then it was Intercom at that point. But that's a story that will be coming up. But
Yes.
welcome, number one.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
You know, when I talk about you've worked for virtually every media outlet for radio in Kansas City, it's true. But the amazing part about you is that you were born, raised, you went to Miege, then you went to KU. You have never left Kansas City for all practical purposes for your job. And in this business,
Yeah.
that is very, very rare. I mean, I worked in Grand Coulee, Washington, Chelan, Washington, Eureka, California, Green Bay, Wisconsin before I got here. I had no intention of staying here. I was going to do another move, but here I am. But there was never a time when you left town. Were you ever tried? Did anybody ever try to lure you out of town?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think I meant to stay here my entire life. It just kind of worked out that way. When I was 21, 22, I was at 810. I was working on Jason's show, and we would go do the Super Bowl broadcast, right? We'd do the Radio Row thing. And there would be other stations. Hey, we're in Portland, and hey, we're in Connecticut. And, you'd get little feelers out there. And I just never felt like I had to do it. The closest I got was about 2018. We had just come back from spring break. The family, we went out to California. And my daughter loves California. She's a West Coast girl. And my wife said, would you ever move for your job? And I kid you not, when I got back, I had a phone call from a guy in Seattle. They wanted me to come up to Seattle and run their big station up there. And my wife said, look, you got to talk to him. I'm not high on Seattle. It rains all the time. I'm warm weather.
That's not a West Coast. That's like London.
And so I did the dance with them, and I got down to the finals. And then finally I'm going, I don't think it's for me. And the crazy part was a week after I did that, the bridge called. And you talk about being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And the bridge called. And this is how clueless I am, Frank, because Carla from Kansas City PBS calls, and she says, she's Irish. She says, I want to talk to you about the bridge. And I come home, and I'm like, this woman Carla called wants to talk about the bridge. I love that station. What do you think she wants to talk about, like music? And my wife goes, you dummy. She wants to talk about a job. And I'm so clueless.
It doesn't matter what you want to start. It's a job, okay?
And so we did that dance, and I took the gig in summer of 2018.
Yeah, so you've been there now for 7 years.
Yes.
At this point, of course, Evergreen Broadcast. And we could always go back and watch it all by Bryan Truta, but that's been a great great move for you, and I think
it.
it fits your personality. You know what you wanted to do, right?
The music, the lifestyle, all the concerts, everything, and it also just gives us room to be authentic, to be our real selves.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, so you go to Queen of the Holy Rosary grade school, which now is St. Paul.
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So I know they just had you on a little thing. So
yeah,
I saw a little bit about the St. Paul. So I got to talk to you about the St. Paul. So this is elementary school.
Yeah.
Okay. So you played soccer and baseball and basketball and volleyball. However, folks, he also cross-stitched, which I have no idea what it is. And then I saw the video of the Irish dance. Okay, yeah. Here's Bryan Truta and so doing a hand-in-hand Irish dance thing.
Yeah, it was the jig.
Oh my gosh,
it was the jig.
It was the Irish jig.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So my mom thought it would be a great idea for us boys, and I've got one younger brother. She wanted us to be well-rounded. So sports were a big part of our lives, but when they started the cross-stitching club at school, she's like, you should do that. And, I'm here making the little circle thing, trying to get the weave going. And
sticking yourself with the pin half the time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Ow. Oh, God, I've got more Band-Aids on my fingers than anything. And then they said, we're going to form this Irish dance club. And the whole point was they were going to put the school in the St. Patrick's Day parade. And my mom's like, yeah, let's go. I mean, come on, let's dance. And so I was out there. I was the only kid in my grade level. So they put me in a green suit, front and center, like I'm in the Wizard of Oz. And I have to do this jig. And, Frank, back in those days, the St. Patrick's Day parade, and it's always been huge in the city. Yeah. But it went from Union Station down Grand to the city market. It was like 2.5 miles. We had to dance the entire 2.5 miles all the way down the parade. And I'm by the end, I'm like, I've lost 50 pounds and I'm tired as hell. Can we please stop?
My big toenails are blackened because they're jammed in the front of my Irish dancing shoes.
Oh, but I still loved every minute of it. Even those offbeat things that Mom had us do.
Yeah.
Oh God. And there it is.
There it is, right there, pal. Truta goes dancing. Yeah. You're on next, as a matter of fact. And do you remember the young lady you're on with?
Yeah, that's Krista Heilman.
Okay.
And she was also in my grade. And she ended up going to Aquinas, and I went to Miege, but we stayed friends. We were the only two of our grade level that was in the Irish dancing.
Graders, right?
Yeah.
So you were the finale. I mean, this was the grand finale of the show, right?
Now, this is the old folks' home over at Knoll and Shawnee Mission Parkway.
There you go. Hey, let me tell you something. You're pretty light on those feet, pal. Let me tell you. Good shoes on. You got your tennies on, right? Okay.
Well, the bowl haircut with the semi.
With the party in the back.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was big for the time.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Gosh, that is some fun stuff there, my friend. And you've always been sort of open for it. I'm going to tell a story real quick here, too, about mothers. God bless them, right?
Yeah.
So we get to 8th grade, and I'm not Bryan Truta. Okay, I'm not exactly Bryan Truta. So my mother, in her infinite wisdom, said, you need to go and learn some things about, you're going to be going to high school, and you're going to be going to dances. If you're going to learn how to we're going to send you to dancing school.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so she sends me to dancing school with all these kids in my class that I hate. Okay, and then they bring girls in from our elementary school, but also from others as well. So we're sitting around. They don't just teach you how to dance; they teach you about the forks and the spoons and what everything's used for, and the plates in front of you, and all that sort of thing. So me in there, it was like It was insane. It was just totally insane. About, I think there was supposed to be like 7 times we were supposed to go. After the 3rd time, the instructors called home and said, hey, he's just a little wild. Could you sort of extract him from class?
You got kicked out.
You got kicked out of dancing school. Okay. There's no Irish jig, though. There was the waltz and the just the 2-step and they didn't even teach you how to jitterbug or do the pony or do the twist or do anything else. They were just it was like all this crazy dance. But that is classic. I just love that. So you go from there to Miege High School, okay, and in 8th grade you were the student council president of the 8th grade, right?
I was,
At
yes.
Queen of the Holy Rosary, now St. Paul, right?
Yeah.
Well, you go to Miege, you're on the student council, and you're the president in your senior year. You're in debate and forensics, okay? You won the state award, original oratory. What was your subject for the original oratory?
Salt.
As in-
The white table salt.
Oh, I thought it was SALT.
No, like the
salt treated-
arm talks.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
arm
no.
talks.
No, real table salt, because believe it or not, salt has this incredible history of having been currency at one point. People would barter for it. It became very popular when it came to preserving, ham and meats and everything back in the medieval times.
Right.
There are a lot of properties to salt, and what you had to do in debate for that original oratory, you had to pick one subject and do a 7-minute talk on it. On salt. And I could, at the time, tell you everything you needed to know about it.
Yeah, I'll bet you probably still could, right?
It's somewhere in the back of my head.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In the back of your head, you could. That's amazing. You're also National Honor Society, of course, informative speaking, campus ministry. You're on a quiz bowl and the whole deal. And you go to Kansas, okay?
Yeah.
And you major in TV, radio production, writing, performance, but you also majored in poli-sci.
I did.
Okay, so to me, a little bit of this, being president of your class in elementary, being president of the student council at Miege, was there in the back of your mind, I'm going to go into journalism, but if this thing doesn't work out real well, would you go to politics? Were you thinking about politics?
No, I wanted to be the Rush Limbaugh of the left.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I wanted to do.
How about that?
And I'll tell you about the student council stuff. I wanted to do those things because they got to talk on the PA system at school. So in 8th grade, you get up and give a speech in front of everybody. I thought that was the coolest, right? Because
some kids are just petrified.
This public speaking, being on stage, being in front of people was always in my blood. And so I thought, well, if I run for president, I get to give a speech. And so I went, by the order of your last name, you go last. And so Truta comes up there, and I had prepared this whole deal because I'd been watching the presidential,
debates or whatever.
And I learned, I was like, okay, call and response. And so I remember in that 8th grade speech going, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We're going to give you a soda fountain and blah, blah, blah. And, is that what you want? And you hear two people go, yeah. And I go, is that what you want? And the whole crowd goes, yeah. And then it just became this chant. And then, so I won that because it became memorable. Sure. And when I was a junior, I ran for student council because the junior class secretary gets to do the announcements on the PA at the beginning and the end of school. So I turned that into a little radio show, Frank. Every day at Miege, the 5 minutes I had in the morning and night, I had a captive audience of 1,000 people, and I was doing a radio show. And what was the stupid, simple announcements about, tomorrow's the bee lunch day, it's fried chicken and hamburger with fries. But I would turn that into bits, and I would do these contests where I would ask my friends, I said, okay, give me a word. I'm going to slip it into the announcements this afternoon at 2:05. And I would have to try to find a way to work that word in.
Right. Gosh, you're way ahead of your time. This is high school, right?
It was high school.
So
yeah.
So when you go to college, then you are really thinking and you want to be Rush Limbaugh, but you want to be on the left, the other side of the political fence.
Yeah,
and
I was torn. I wanted to be Harry Carey. I wanted to be Rush Limbaugh. I wanted to be so many things. In those times when you got home from school, early cable, WGN was like one of 10 stations you got, right? But they always had the Cubs on because the Cubs couldn't play night games. And I fell in love with Harry Carey. Yeah. So part of me wanted to be Harry Carey.
Well, you got to drink on the job. Yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah. What a fun time this guy's having. And then, the politics, I just, was just kind of a news nerd like that, debate and all that kind of stuff coming in. But,
yeah.
I could have gone so many different ways.
So when you go to KU, you're thinking about, I'm going to have my own radio show.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like Rush Limbaugh, or I'm going to go into sports. I'm going to do play-by-play. I'm going to do something like that, right?
Sure.
That was what you were thinking?
Yeah. So, after sophomore year of the J School, they've got a big board with all the job and internship openings. And I see 1510. And I knew that station because my first job was at a pharmacy in downtown Overland Park, McDaniel's Pharmacy. I'm 14 years old. And we have this manager, Jeff, and we love rock and roll, but he wants to listen to sports talk all day. So we're listening to Pete Enoch, Zorin Petro.
Yeah.
And so I know that the fabulous sports babe.
That's right. I forgot about her.
Inside and out, Frank. I knew that station. And so when I see it up on the bulletin board, I thought, well, I can indulge my inner Harry Carey. I'll apply for the internship. And that's what got me over there.
And that was your junior year at between
that was my sophomore year. It was actually in the fall of my sophomore year.
Fall of your sophomore year. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I was driving up. I was driving to Independence 3 days a week. I didn't have class on Tuesday and Thursday, and of course the weekend.
1501, by the way, was in Independence.
Oh my gosh!
We'll talk about the building in a minute. But go ahead.
So this is the fall of 1998, and I went and I met with Chad and El Presidente. Said they've got this internship, and I said, "Hey, look, I've already kind of worked in radio. I actually started when I was 16. I started at Mix 93, the top 40 station, when I was 16 years old. A friend of mine, Kevin Kramer, he says, my aunt works on the radio. Would you like to meet her?" I was like, I would love that. You know, everybody knew I wanted, because I'm doing this radio show on the announcements every day, and I go up and I meet this woman, and I take a tour of the station, and at the end, the program director appears out of nowhere, and he goes, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to run the show. Friday nights, we do our show live from America's Pub in Westport. But we need somebody back here to push the buttons and run the music and the commercials and all that stuff." And I go, "Dude, I'm sold. I'm in."
And you yet have no idea how to run the board.
No, I don't. I mean, I just, fake it till you make it, right? But I kind of showed this aptitude. So they had me come up a couple of times and kind of train on it. The first night, the Friday night comes. Now, this is Mix 93. This is big time right off the bat. Everybody's listening top 40. The boss walks in and he goes, "This is a $45 million radio station. Don't blank it up." And I'm like, 16 going, oh my gosh, but it was the greatest. It was the greatest. And, everything was tactile. We didn't have computers. So we're playing CDs. We're playing the tape, the carts.
You're pushing
reel to reel.
Oh, man. The whole deal. Yeah.
It was great. I loved it.
Gosh. So now you have experience. You have board experience, number one. So when you eventually get to, when do you come over to 1510? So that's after college.
Yeah,
right?
that was sophomore year of college, like I said. So
for the internship.
I answered this. Well, so here's what happened. I walk in the door. Chad says, "Hey, you got experience. We just bought this station." Frank, I was employee 0007. Keatsman, Chad, Gabe Boucher, Duke Fry, Jessica, me.
Gabe's back, by the way. Go ahead.
I know. We can't stay away. And so he's like, "Well, you have experience. How about we just pay you?" So Tuesday and Thursday, when I didn't have class, I would drive from Lawrence to Independence. And I would stay the night with my parents in Overland Park. Sure. And then I would go to work on Tuesday, Thursday. Then I would come in weekends, and I did everything. I ran the racing show. I ran the Woodland show.
Yeah.
I made commercials. You go out to the remotes and hang up banners.
The dog track.
It was, yeah. Here comes Woody. And like, oh man, this is great. We are playing back tapes of the Woodland races on the radio, and I'm going, does anybody care? Who cares? This is great.
You can't bet on them. What are you doing? Race has already been run. You could do like in the Sting. You already know who's going to win. Then you could make a little money on the deal. But that was it. Yeah.
Oh, but it was so much fun. Yeah. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, you did. Now that building in its own right. Well, okay.
Oh my gosh.
So before we get to the building, let's talk a little bit. So you get out of school. Okay, in '97, I think you got out of KU. Right?
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry, '99.
Well, what actually ended up happening was, like I said, I was concurrently going to school and doing the job. In the spring of '99, Chad Boger comes to me and he goes, "We're going to hire Jason Whitlock from the Star to do the morning show. Do you want to be on it?" And I was like, "Of course I do. This is amazing." And then I said something, and something happened that would never in a million years happen in any sort of major market radio station. I said, but this is April. my finals are over May 12th. Can we like wait till then to do the morning show? And he's like, yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever.
You
and I'm going,
told the boss.
What?
Can you hold on for a few months? I'm not ready yet.
So what we would do is it was great though, because we had to teach Jason how to do radio. And so Chad, we would come in Saturday mornings at 6 a.m. We practiced the whole thing. And we would do a fake morning show on the air from 6 to 9 on Saturday mornings for those couple weeks before I started. And I swear, I was in the control room and I had a button I could talk into their ear. I was sitting there one day and I heard this tremendous wind noise on the air. I'm like in my headphones. I'm like, what is that noise? It was like a gale. And I realized that Jason was asleep. And so I hit the button in his ear and I go, Jason, wake up. And Bryan. I mean, Frank, we were rough. We were rough at the beginning, but that was the start of it.
You produced actually, ran the board for Ahem Mayhem, which was
that's
Chad.
Right.
That was Chad, right?
It was Chad and Jason.
That's exactly what and then eventually it just morphed. Chad, of course, had to do more and more El Presidente work because he owned the station, he and Green and his dad.
That whole crew. But so he came to us. Well, first off, I said, look, I'm not going back to school. This is too much fun, right? I've got a job now.
Yeah, sure.
I'm doing what I want to do. So I cut out school after that.
And poli-sci-ism.
Oh, it was gone. I'm like, no, this
maybe
thing.
the political deal's still in the back of your head. Like, well, I'm learning this, so maybe someday.
Yeah, but this was too much fun, right? This was too much fun. And Chad decides eventually, look, I got to step back. We did this big talent search. We had a bunch of people come in to try to be the co-host. And then we realized that, look, the perfect guy is right under our nose, Stephen St. John.
Oh, yeah.
He's right here. He's doing the night show. He's so funny. He's the funniest guy we know. Let's bring him up, and the rest was history after that.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Stephen St. John, you might not know over at WHB is the fact that he was a caller. Yeah, he basically called in and would call and ask questions and do all this stuff. And he was MU the Rock.
MU Rock.
MU Rock. He was MU Rock. And so he's a caller, and this is the way we do things on radio, folks. This is just so you're on with Jason and St. John at this time. Yeah. Whitlock and St. John. And it was, it had to be absolutely bizarro world.
It was bizarro world because we were coming in second to Johnny Dare, right?
Which is pretty good.
It was amazing.
It's pretty.
We had
damn
snapped up all these listeners, and 810. It was just. Stephen used to tell me something funny. Stephen used to say, because 810 we would advertise anything, and hundreds of people would show up, right? You know how this goes, right?
Sure.
Stephen used to say we could advertise a flaming bag of poo on the corner of 12th and Main, and 100 people would show up to see it. It was just whatever we said, people did. Sure. I was on the air one morning, Frank, and I said, man, I sure could use some White Castle right now. 3 guys showed up with bags of White Castle to the front door of the station. Like, we had this power that was, I've never seen anything like it since.
Right. Now, you really can't eat White Castle on the air because you're not going to be at the board very long. Okay. You're talking about wind.
Yeah.
Okay? There would have been a little wind in that studio. There's no doubt. Before we get into some stories about Jason, the station itself, the building itself we had a transmitter there and we had a building there. One day, I think it was Jason, I remember the picture of him, still to this day, sprawled out on the couch as soon as you walked in, just sound asleep. Yeah. Just snoring. Yeah. And just, he was sound asleep. People just walk in and walk by him and go, what? Never, don't ask. Don't ask. But the building, there were cockroaches everywhere. Remember, somebody poked a hole in the wall one time, I don't know how they did it with their elbow or something. All of a sudden, it was like one of those horror pictures, right? The cockroaches come out of the wall by the hundreds of them. I'm going, they were all over the kitchen. I'm going, how are we supposed to work in this building? Are you kidding me?
It was awful. We had bees too. In the summer, and through that hole, the bees would come. And so you're doing a commercial sitting there and you're like, yeah, Oklahoma Joe's barbecue, great barbecue, burn ends. And you're like swatting away all the bees coming in trying to sting at you. It was crazy.
That place was nuts. It was absolutely incredible.
It was the frat house.
It was the frat house. It really was.
Yeah.
And then eventually moved over there to Corporate Lakes.
Yeah.
For Union Broadcasting. There was like going from hell to heaven in one step. I mean, it was just incredible. Yeah.
I want to tell a story about the first time I met you, Frank, because the building factors into this. You know, that building was so small, you could hear everything.
Oh yeah.
And there's this in the back of the building. There's this little tiny kitchen, break room.
That's where the cockroaches were, by the way.
And yes, it was. It was like my first week at the station. I was like 19 years old. I had just started. I'm back there with my buddy Nick McCabe, we're still best friends to this day. He's production director. So he'd been hired a couple months before. Todd Lebo's back there, Kevin Keatsman. All of a sudden, the doors to the building blow open. And it should have been a Hurricane Frank warning because we heard you coming a mile away. And as you walk through the building, you're like verbally picking people off. Hey, Jessica, blank you and blank you. So you get back to the kitchen and we're all around this table, Keatsman, Lebo, Nick, myself, and you just pick us off and you go, blank you, blank you, blank you. And you get to me and you go, I don't even blank and know you. And I thought, this is great. This is fantastic. This guy I've seen on my TV every night.
Yeah. Not cursing at all. Everybody wondered how that ever happened.
Part of the club. This is
how I went
great.
through a TV without ever dropping the F-bomb on television.
How do any of us?
City. I know. Compartmentalize.
Yeah.
We can all compartmentalize.
Yeah.
You know when you got the microphone in front, you go,
That's right.
You know, and even when they pinned it on you for TV, the deal was just pretend it's always on.
Sure.
That's all you got to remember.
Yep.
We've heard the mistakes. Somebody back in the studio forgets to turn it off and got at the boss, and that's the end of it.
Well, so my first mistake on the air.
Oh, boy.
My job after the morning show was done, I did the Sports Center updates at the top of the hour. So they would have the ESPN Network Sports Center, and then we would do 1 minute local Sports Center. And that was me. The problem was I like to go to lunch and I like to eat. And so we had gotten the computer system, and you're talking about me being on the radio while we're trying to do this.
Right.
They had showed us, okay, here's how you can record that segment, and then you can go to lunch, and it will just play itself. So I was doing 60-second Sports Center, and I remember the story, the closing story. Jackie Stiles last night lit him up for 45 points, and I get to the end, and I bungled something, and I go, oh, blank. And I hit the button, and I thought I hit re-record. But instead, I must have hit something else.
Yeah, you hit record.
We're in the car. Mm-hmm. We're in the car. It's 12:05. We're 3 blocks from the station. The music hits. I do the update. 55 seconds in, Jackie Stiles, blank. Right on the radio and right into the next thing. And my buddy Nick looks over. He goes, "You did what?" And I was like, oh, I'm toast. I'm toast.
I know. You just got fired.
And they had a field day with that. People were calling Kevin's show going, I think Truta should say something like that every day in Sports Center because it really picked me up, you know?
Because Keatsman in those days was doing the morning show, right?
Yeah.
So
he was on after Jim Rome.
After Jim Rome, yeah. I'm sorry, I did the early afternoon.
But I thought, oh my gosh, what a stupid mistake.
Yeah. So talk about being Jason Whitlock's producer, and you have to have a billion stories. There might be one or two you can tell, okay? But that was, and Jason, of course, nationally known, internationally known probably now with his show now.
Jason, people ask me what Jason was like.
Yeah.
And I actually tell him, I said he was a big softie. And here's an example. When we brought Steven aboard to do the show, like I said, we were starting to build our stature, right? The ratings were coming. The audience was there. We were starting to get asked to go do different things. Hey, can you MC this event? Can you show up to this? And Steven and I mean, we're young bucks making no money at all. And we didn't have really great dress clothes. And so I kid you not, Jason said, we get to his car one day and he goes, "Come on, guys, we're going to the mall." And he took us to the mall and he bought Steven and I suits. And he's like, if you're going to go out and represent the show, I want you to look the part. And, never ask for any money back, never ask for repayment.
Right.
Can I pay you $20 a check? No, I got it. And that was just, he was loyal to you if you were loyal to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that was the thing about it. That was Jason. But, for all the antics, this guy, was ridiculously crazy. Anything that entered his mouth, and that's what people realize he's so good at. He knows exactly what it is that's going to get somebody fired up on the other end of their radio or the other, reading that newspaper. What is this person going to read that's going to just get them hopping mad? And he was so perfect at crafting that out of his shows or out of his column. He was the master.
Yeah, he was really good at it. He knew exactly what button to push.
Yeah.
And he usually pushed the one where, you got the majority of, be a KU fan. Say, your basketball team stinks. Or something crazy like that. And they're going, what? What did he just say? Did you hear what Jason Whitlock said in the radio? And that's exactly what you need in order to garner an audience. If you're there being Mr. Goody Two-Shoes all the time, it's just not going to work.
Well, I'll tell you, the two buttons he managed to push that led to a great story were Carl Peterson, general manager of the Chiefs, and Don Fortune, our competition over at KMBZ. Carl was the usual foil, right? So Carl was, and it got to the point where we would go to training camp, and Jason had written something, and Carl saw it all the way up in River Falls, Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
And we would be in the little media huddle to get sound, and I would ask a question, and Carl looked down and he goes, what station you with? 810, we're done here. And he would turn around and walk away.
From everybody.
Yeah. He was like, I killed it all. You guys were like, Truta, come on.
Yeah.
I killed everything. There was this story that came out about Don Fortune sold his house and his cats had peed on the carpet. And there was this whole thing, right? So naturally, Jason picks up on this. I think it was Hearn Christopher's column or something.
Yeah.
And so Jason picks up on this. And we're doing a whole series of Catman parodies on the air. And, cat meows or, on the morning show as drops, everything meow, meow. And so we go to that Monday Chiefs presser, right? Every Monday they'd have the press conference at the Arrowhead. And at the time, you remember the old Arrowhead, you take that rickety elevator down like 25 floors to the bunker basement, and that's where they had the press conference. Slow as heck. And so we're waiting out of the press conference, and it's Carl Peterson, Don Fortune, Jason, and me. The elevator opens, and now Jason knows he's got a captive audience. And he goes, Bryan, hit record. And he goes, Don Fortune, what do you say about these cat pee stains on your carpet? And Don just got, Jason, I'm not going to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. He rips over and pulls the mic cord out of the recorder. And Jason goes, Bryan, plug it back in. Okay. Now, Don, and he keeps going, and Carl is in the corner going, for once, it's not me. Hey, all right. And he's enjoying the heck out of this because for once, Jason's not on his tail,
Right.
And that elevator ride to the top had to have lasted 3 hours for Don Fortune. It was crazy.
That is crazy, yeah. Oh, that's a great story. That's all. There's so many. So you're there. You're at 810. Do you, before the split, when Jason and Tim and Bill leave, which was, I forget, because I went on with those guys in 01. Right. I think we're August of 01, the summer, because I remember September 11th happening, like a month later.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was walking into the old studio. We're talking about I'm hearing this about a plane crash in New York City, hit the side of the building, the World Trade Center. And everybody right away thought, it's one of those tourist planes, one of those little tourist planes hit it or whatever. And all of a sudden, we know exactly what hit it and the whole thing. So we were bumped off the air at that time. But that's when we started with Crunch Time, with Bill, Tim, and myself. And then we morphed to what year? I forget exactly what year it was when they left. Was it 83? When did Entercom come in and finally see? And the other thing, folks, you got to know about this is the reason the popularity was there. We were the only sports radio station in Kansas City at the time.
Yeah, that's
and all of a sudden, one of the big conglomerates from Philadelphia, Entercom, saw that and they say, well, why should they get all the advertising revenue on First Sports? They didn't even care if they made money on it. They just didn't want us to get it all. So they get a sports station and they start to raid the popular sports station over there, and that's exactly what they did, right?
Yeah, they. I got a call one day, and they said, "Hey, it's Platt so and so from Philadelphia. I'm flying in next week. I'd like to meet you. Let's go meet on the plaza." And I'm like, "What is going on? Right? Like this is crazy." So I was like, "Well, I'm not one to turn down a free lunch.
Absolutely.
No, that's
hey,
great.
who knows? They might double my salary.
Well, possibly.
Yeah.
So I go down there and, they give the little song and dance. And, hey, we're actually looking for somebody to produce the afternoon show with Don Fortune and Jim Rose from Nebraska. This is when they paired the two of them together. And I was like,
I remember the cat story. I don't think I'm going over with Don Fortune.
Yeah, I work with Jason Whitlock. I don't know how well received I would be walking into that building. No, you got a blank check, you got all this stuff. And they gave a great song and dance, but I thought about it. I'm like, you can't beat what we have at 810. Mm-hmm. You just can't beat that. And
even though Philadelphia's a giant market, the whole thing.
But it's like you said, we weren't going to be important though. We were just okay, we've got sports, we've got the Royals. Oh, but we do news and we do traffic and we do Rush Limbaugh. And you're just one of a cog of all these different things. Mm-hmm. And it's like not one thing is really important to them. And we had that camaraderie at 810. We were building stuff. We were doing this great show. I'm like, I can't leave that. And then ironically, the FM called. And they said, well, you could come and do an FM morning show. And I thought, okay, I'll go do that. And then I did leave.
Yeah,
I did leave in September 2001, right before September 11th.
Yes.
And was on the air with my new partner, Nikki Pace, over there at 105, doing that morning show.
Yeah. So, and then that morphed into everything else you're going to do in life here in Kansas City. But again, here you are. You had Seattle at one time.
Yeah.
Okay, Philadelphia one time, both big markets, way bigger in Kansas City. You just kept on going. It just never enticed you.
With my family here and everybody that grew up, and I just thought, well, that's going to be pretty cool if I can just make a life and be around the people that I grew up with. I mean, I'd rather do that, and maybe that sounds kind of parochial or small town or whatever, but I was like, again, there is it's like your podcast says, there is something about Kansas City that you really just can't beat, that big small town feel, and I couldn't give that up.
Yeah. Yeah, which is crazy because then you go, you go over to Susquehanna Radio, of course, and that's the Hot AC Morning Show. That's the 105, right?
Yeah.
Okay, even Sarah, my wife, was talking about that.
That's right. Yeah.
That's Nikki and Truta. That you built that up from the ground up, right?
Yeah.
And you worked with Sarah part-time over there, so that's great. Your air shift was you had to get out of the studio, right? You had to get out of the studio. So talk about that a little bit.
I was, yes, we were doing that morning show, and I can always tell people what their age or gender is by what station they know me from. It's like, older man, you probably listen to 810.
Right.
Younger women, probably to 105.1. So I can kind of nail what decade of my career you're talking about.
What format they liked, yeah.
But, I always loved doing, crazy stuff out of the studio. We would do these remote broadcasts. I got a call one time, and they said, hey, we're really hard up. Will you go fly in the Metro traffic plane and do the traffic
report
from the plane?
This is the plane.
It was a single engine Cessna plane. And so I thought, I'm always up for an adventure. Why the heck not? It was Johnny Rowland's company, so Rowland's calls me up. Truta, I'm hard up, man. I need somebody to help me out. So I go down to the executive airport on 151st Street, meet this pilot. His name's Danny. He's a young guy. He goes, okay, we're going to climb up to 1,800 feet. Here's the switch. You flip it on. You're on the air. You can hear him in your ear. I said, perfect. That's great. We get up to 1,800 feet. He goes, plane's yours. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, you want to fly? I was like, what? Me? He goes, yeah, I'll teach you. So, we're flying circles around the 435 loop to do traffic. And every 10 minutes I'd flip it on and go, oh, yeah, looks like there's an accident, 435 of the triangle, backed up to row. Okay, I'll see you later. And then we, keep on flying. We had a game when we got back to the airport. My last report was at 5:55 p.m. So at 5:52, he would call in for the landing pattern. Cessna 8735, we're going to land. He would put it into this deep dive I mean, we're talking straight up. I'm holding like this.
You're going to strafe the runway.
They got, in my ear, here's Truta with the traffic. And I'm like, yep, accidents at 35 and 119th Street and 435. And the game was, as soon as I landed, because the transmitter wouldn't work on the ground, as soon as I finished my report, I'm Bryan Truta, we land, boom, wheels down on the ground. Done.
And you're cut out.
And that was the game.
Oh,
yeah. God. Can we make the whole report and then hit wheels on the ground? Yeah.
You weren't the guys that ended up in my backyard.
No,
you were the guys slid off the runway into my backyard when I was in Morse Village, were you? Okay.
It was unreal. I mean, what am I doing up there? Flying a plane? I have no business doing this.
Did you end up doing the helicopter at all? Because my wife Sarah did the helicopter.
Oh, yeah. Johnny gave me a ride one time, but I didn't want any part of that.
You didn't want to be. You'd rather be in a single-engine Cessna.
Sure, it was a lot more fun.
The runway, make sure it cut off right at the right time. Right? Oh my God. Okay, so you ended up working a little bit on a web platform, so you're getting into that a little bit, and that ended up being really, really popular, didn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the beginning of the internet,
yes, and that's what I'm talking about.
We had these friends, and like, hey, we can do these streaming things and whatnot. Kelly Urich, big time radio guy in Kansas City.
Yeah, everybody will know that name.
We do kcradio.com, and he does it out of the basement of his house, right? And you go over there and you open the door, and the studio's better than ours at the station. And I go, well, that's where all of our old stuff went. He just picked up the board and there's the microphone. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But, that stuff was just starting to get so popular. You couldn't help but pay attention. Is this going to be something bigger than radio? And we played around with that for a little while. And then you realize, look, broadcasting, you are talking to more people. It's more local.
You're live.
Yeah.
Right there. A lot of the other stuff's on tape,
Sure.
But by the way, folks, we usually do this interview at 10 o'clock in the morning. And Truta works from 6 to 10 over at the bridge. He was here right on time at 10. It was one of those deals where you shut the car off, and then you just, hey, Bryan Truta on the bridge. We'll see you tomorrow.
Turn the car.
And there you are. Okay, right. We'll talk about that.
The plane landed in the back on Quivira.
Right here.
I was all done.
Right on Flum.
Yeah.
Right outside. Okay, 0507, you come back to the Union because we had the FM station at the time,
yeah.
The Planet.
That's right.
Yeah.
People don't realize I actually left and came back to the same place twice.
Yeah.
810 to 105.
You usually don't get that opportunity unless you've done the right thing the whole way through.
Well, and yeah, I mean, let me just say that your little theme off the top that you've worked for every radio company in town. I mean, the key is just don't burn the bridges.
Yeah.
Every
the bridge.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Don't burn the bridge. Just be a nice guy. Treat everybody with respect. Be upfront about your intention. So 105, ironically at the time, had flipped to Jack FM.
Which was very popular.
It was very popular, but it had no DJs at the beginning.
It was all automated.
So they said, well, you can take a desk job. We want you to be the music director and schedule all the music that's going to play. And I thought, well, that sounds... it's going to be cool for like a week, and then it's going to get incredibly boring.
Yeah, terrible.
Because I'm not on the radio. And at the time, Chad called, and he said, well, kind of having trouble with this morning show guy on 810. If all the dominoes fall, Steven will go back to the morning show. This job will open up. You can come back and do this on the Planet. And it was like that year when the Chiefs had to have 15 things in a full moon and an even number day of the week to get in the playoffs. That one New Year's Eve.
Oh yeah, right.
And then it all happened. Like all these things happened. I get the call. Steven's going to the morning show. This guy's leaving. You're going over here. And so that's when I came back to the Planet. It was crazy.
That guy leaving was
John Renshaw. John Renshaw.
Enough said. Okay. Yeah. I can remember a few mornings walking in going, what's wrong with him? Why is he on the floor? What? Is he supposed to be talking to the guy who just called in? Okay, never mind. I'm just going to go back here and mind my own business because we're coming on after these guys are over. Okay, so then you go over to Cumulus, and that was Jack. You went back to program director and Jack, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you had Jack's Big Breakfast Morning Show, which was
that's right. So we brought Nikki back. I was back.
Yeah,
the reason
Nikki Pace. Yeah.
They called me and they said, "Well, look, we learned our lesson. Jack was popular, but the popularity sort of petered out because there weren't live people on the radio.
Right.
So we want to put live people back. Will you come back and do this?" And I thought, that's fantastic. So that was me going back to 105. from
You'd
Union.
gone, went back to Union, then go back to Susquehanna. Back and forth. But you, best radio personality during that period of time, front page of the KC Star. I mean, you were just, you were booming at that point, right?
Again, that sort of success kind of followed, and we were, very lucky. Because, look, we were stupid. I mean, we were doing stupid stuff. We did a Jonas Brothers Purity ring toss. Because remember at the time, they're like, oh, we're saving it for marriage. And so when the Jonas Brothers concert came to town, I sent Nikki out in the parking lot with the wireless mic, and we set up a ring toss. And it's the Purity ring toss for Jonas Brothers tickets. I mean, you just got to do stupid stuff like that to get your name out. And people, for whatever reason, wanted to listen to that in the morning for blows my mind.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Right. So nothing ever lasts forever.
Yeah.
And in I think for just for a short period of time, you went over to Wilkes. Well, you're getting a history of KC Radio, by the way, too. Thanks to Truta, who's been at every station. That was Mix 93, Q104, KFKF, and Alice 102. But you didn't last long there. What you were sort of everywhere from like 13 and 15. You had like 2 or 3 jobs, right?
I kind of had to do a lot of stuff. So when you get fired, you have even when you get fired, you have a non-compete, and you know how this goes. And they're like, well, even though we fired you. Yeah. You can't be on the air for 6 months anymore.
Which is no longer legal.
Right. Yeah. But at the time, people were kind of...
big deal, yeah.
And so I had actually worked out this compromise, and they said, you can go do production. You can do commercials, but you can't use your name.
Be on or use your voice, probably.
That's right. So I did production at the Wilkes stations while I was waiting out my non-compete. In the meantime, I had a friend of mine say, hey, you ever DJ'd weddings? And I thought, have I? We'll talk about getting the police called to Frank's house one time. And he goes, look, I've got this business. It's going gangbusters. It's more than I can handle. Why don't we join forces and do this? And so we formed a production company. And we were doing everything. We had Hallbrook Country Club. We had all these schools. We had Worlds of Fun. I did 110 gigs in 1 year. They're only 52 weeks.
I know.
So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we were out. And we eventually expanded that to video stuff. We were videoing weddings. And, I mean, it was just getting crazy.
Right.
And I, for a second, thought, again, like the web stuff, well, is this more lucrative than radio? And you just can't get rid of that. There's something about broadcasting that pulls you back in. You know, it's that cruel mistress.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking to the man.
I'm supposed to be playing golf at 10 in the morning, not talking to you at 10 in the morning. Okay. So that was a KC moving picture company, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, a little awesome. Production house. Yeah. And, we did all kinds of stuff. We did commercials and stuff like that. But, I loved it because, again, it was technical. It was kind of broadcasting. I've always kind of nerded out on, like, the editing part of stuff. I always really enjoyed that part of radio as much as doing this.
Yeah, right. So we had the Christmas dinners. We're going to really tell stories out of school now. So we used to have the Christmas dinners for Union Broadcasting for our radio station, right? So 810 WHB. So we'd have the Christmas party, having a Grozos or somewhere, right?
Yeah.
We'd have that. And then in my infinite wisdom, I said, the Christmas party's going to be over at 10. That's a little early, right? Why don't I just have a post-Christmas party out at Boal-Manor out there at Morse Village? Not a really good idea, but everybody and of course, we had the police arrive.
Yeah.
One night. That's only one of the many.
I think it was.
Deals, yeah.
But I mean,
you were DJing a little loud, yeah.
But you're the ultimate party thrower because you show up to Boal-Manor and Frank had this tent lining the driveway.
Just in case. Remember, it's right around Christmas time, so you got to have the heaters.
Yes.
You got to have the tents. You got to worry about snow.
It's snowing.
I didn't want everybody in my basement.
Yeah.
Most of them were there, but not everybody. Yeah.
There's a dance floor, and there's the whole thing. And I'm going, is this left over from a wedding? I mean, what the heck just happened here? Frank says, okay, come set up the sound system and you can DJ.
Yeah.
I'm playing tunes. We're rocking. And all of a sudden, pulls up and look, it's like 3 a.m, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got to
It was
go.
about time.
Yeah, it's about time to shut it down.
Yeah. That was a time when the dance floor was wood, okay, and you have it up off the ground a little bit, right? It's on little stands off the ground a little bit.
Yeah.
But the stands are collapsible because you got to take it down eventually, right? So you were DJing, and one young lady came out in the middle of the dance floor and figured she'd show us her moves, and condensation had built up on the dance floor, and she went whoop, hit the dance floor, and all 4 stanchions came out of the dance floor and went shooting across the driveway.
Showed more than their moves, too.
Oh my gosh, that was a classic.
It was why. I mean, between that, the cops showing up. I mean, but that was one
the only time
of
the police showed up at our house.
It was, yeah.
No, it wasn't the only time.
It wasn't the only time. Okay, well, we did a few other things successfully without the cops showing up.
Yeah, and then you did Steel City Media for a while. I can never get that name. Are they from Pittsburgh?
They're from Pittsburgh.
Okay,
yeah.
so
family group from Pittsburgh.
That's good. There we go. So yeah, you were the morning and midday host.
Yeah. Back into broadcasting, right? I couldn't leave it.
You just couldn't leave, could you?
Yeah.
And I think maybe this is funny because I've heard a story, and you can explain this to me. You were the game day public address broadcaster for the
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs, right? Mike Tirico did a halftime show.
Yes.
With you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else in the media, would like that. I want that. You, on the other hand, you had some issues doing this, which I find sort of outside your personality. Explain what happened with that deal with you.
Look, I worked at the Arrowhead for 13 seasons.
Right.
And
that was a long time.
It was a long time. I saw, 100 and some games.
Yeah, sure.
The only one I ever missed was I got food poisoning one time. Preseason game, I'm like, dude, I am not going to make it. Been on the bathroom floor for 24 hours. I'm good. So this was when they were just starting to do the Monday Night Football. We're gonna throw to the public address announcer. We're gonna put the national anthem on television. They had never done this before, right? And so they're like, Mike Tirico is gonna throw to you, and I'm like, he's Mike Tirico, right? Like this guy. This is the guy. And it was, and then I had to introduce the national anthem people, and it was the Kansas City Symphony or something like that. And so, shaking in my boots, and they give the nod, and you're live to the nation. That was your voice there. And then we did that again. Kevin Harlan, good old buddy Kevin, love that guy. He's like, hey, here's Truta. And, so we had some fun with that. But look, 13 seasons, COVID comes.
Okay.
The last game I did was the AFC Championship win for 2020.
Yeah.
They go off to win the Super Bowl, do that very first one. COVID hits. They're like, we don't have a halftime show. We're not going to need you. The next year, we're still kind of coming back from this. 2 years out, I'd become so used to being a fan and sitting at home watching it on an 80-inch TV.
The bathroom, in case you get food poisoning.
Yeah, exactly.
Right
it's right there. And I said, I love it, but to get up at 5 a.m. for a noon game and to be at Arrowhead and to, have to get bussed in, to do all these cold winter mornings. And people don't understand, I dressed like I was going to the game because we were in the press box.
And it was
but the window opens.
When Len did, he always had the window open anyway.
Always had the window because you want that crowd noise.
Yeah.
You want that noise. And so people didn't realize when it's 10 degrees, I'm 10 degrees, right? Like we're not in the warm press box.
That's right.
And I just thought, I've seen everything. I saw 2 and 14. I saw a carousel of coaches, Romeo Crennel, Herm Edwards, all the way to Andy Reid, and I saw an AFC Championship win. I can't top that. I got a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. But did you ever were you ever at that time with Tirico, I'm sure, right? Was maybe the only time you really just
Here's the time I was most nervous. I kid you not. My daughter then went to dance with the Junior Chiefs cheerleaders. And, they always round out their year with the performance on the field. And she was going to be right in front. And this is the bonus of working there. You tell your director, hey, my daughter, she's on the West 25-yard line. Kind of get her on the big
50.
board. Yeah. And so, they shoot her and everything. Introducing her team was the most nervous I've ever been. Wow. My little girl.
That's awesome. Addie, we'll talk about her and Danielle here in a second. You talk about stage fright. You think people that are in front of the camera or on the radio never get stage fright. Quick story here. Chiefs are playing in the AFC playoffs against the New York Jets in New York. This is Makovic, right?
Yeah.
This is way back in the day. So Chiefs get beat. And I'm working for NBC at the time when I'm at WDAF. So I'm on NBC. So I'm covering the Chiefs locker room.
Yep.
And so the NBC people came to us that week and said, look, here's the deal. The sports director from the losing team will do the losing team's locker room. Bob Costas will do the winning team's locker room, right?
Yeah.
But you're going to be you'll be live nationally on the postgame show. So naturally, the Jets beat the Chiefs. And so they're in the Jets locker room and Costas is talking. I am pooping my pants. My heart, and I've been on TV now for a while. My heart is pounding out of my chest.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, Bob Costas is about ready to throw this to me.
Right.
Okay, in the Chiefs locker room. So I grabbed Albert Lewis, who had intercepted the ball and ran back for a touchdown. Might have been the Chiefs' only score, but the Jets won big. So I asked Albert, I said, Albert, can you do me a favor? Can you be on with me for the post-game show? It's always tough to get those guys sometimes.
Yeah, oh, sure.
Especially a national broadcast. So Albert goes, yeah, Frank, I'll do it. I said, okay, great. So we're standing up there, and we're waiting. And the guy from NBC says, 30 seconds. And, Costa's going to throw to you in 30 seconds. I said, okay. So Bob's wrapping up, and Albert turns to me and goes, Frank, I'm sorry. And I said, I'm thinking,
no.
Oh, Albert, you can't walk off. I'm about ready to go national. I go,
right.
Albert, what are you doing? He goes, for making you look so short on national television.
Oh!
I said, oh, my God. And that just he could tell that I'm sitting there, I'm sweating bullets in my heart. He could tell, he had his arm around my shoulder, so he probably felt my heart going like this, the whole deal. So it was great. That was funny. But that took all the pressure off. Right. And then we did the interview and then on for that. But it is a thing. Sometimes you get a little nervous. In fact, I had a guy tell me one time, when you stop being nervous, that's the time you should get out.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Every
true.
time I come in and do one of these, I get a little
anxious. I mean, there's butterflies, but those player interviews after the games.
Oh yeah.
Grunny was always my favorite.
Oh,
and I still give him
Yeah.
crap about it to this day because Grunny didn't care. When you see him on TV, they're shot from here.
Yeah, right.
Little do you know, there's very little going on down below, right?
A towel, maybe. Sometimes
I'm in this locker room with a microphone and a naked guy right here, and Grunny's, giving it to the O-line.
He's scratching.
Oh, my gosh. What is going on?
Hasn't taken a shower yet. It doesn't matter, yeah. And then you go over to the bridge. You had the APT 622 production, apartment 622.
Yeah,
You're probably living in apartment 622.
It was my first apartment. I named the production company after my first apartment when I became an adult, I guess.
Yeah, right. And so you also still do the wedding DJ. You all still do a lot of that. But you're also at the bridge. What has that experience been like? Because that is a public broadcasting station, okay?
It's amazing.
So what is that like compared to what you were doing before?
It's incredible because we actually really get to pay attention to the listener as opposed to the advertiser. And look, hey, advertisers make the world go round. Love you. You've got a place. But in public media where 90% of what you do is given by the person $5, $10, $15 a month, you're beholden to your average Joe listener rather than your advertiser platform. And it just allows us to be, like I said, more authentic, a little more pure. We get to play some crazy stuff. We get to do outrageous things on the radio because simply if that person didn't like it, they wouldn't give the $5 a month. Right. And so it's a really pure level of broadcast.
Yeah, and fun, and fun for you, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the artist interviews like we're doing this.
Yeah, right.
Get to bring people in, get to put them on the radio.
Sure,
it's
they can
awesome.
play their music right there. If they want.
Have them play live. I mean, all things that we started at the Planet 20 years ago. now done in kind of a super fashion because, all that content, like, you got to do the video, you got to do the performance, you have to put that out on YouTube, all that stuff. It's just so big.
I would try to nail you down and say best job, but you might be in it right now. You might be in your best job.
I probably am.
Even though you don't have guys lying on the floor in the middle of their or another guy sprawled out on the thing, or another guy on the headset who's sound asleep. Okay, I don't think you have a whole lot of those, but you don't have to cross stitch or Irish dance.
That's true.
So you're in pretty good shape. You have spent your entire career here.
Yes.
You're born here, raised here, school here, never left, had opportunity to leave. What is it about Kansas City that just kept you the whole time?
It's the people, it's the place, it's everything about it. Kansas City for a long time. My dad worked in that building opposite Channel 4, the BMA White Tower.
Yes.
When I was growing up, he was a draftsman for Butler Manufacturing, and he would take me up there in the 19th floor conference room. You could see miles around.
I've been up there.
Miles around. It is gorgeous. And I always thought, I want to be like the people that I listen to on the radio. Randy Miller. You, of course, had, Leonard and Kevin Harlan, Bill Grigsby. And when I was younger, I said, I want to be the MC of this town. Right. And maybe that was naive or whatever, but I want to really make it here. I love this place. And I was just so fortunate that I didn't have to go anywhere else to do that. 29 years later, still on the radio in my hometown. That is ridiculous.
That's something that is very rarely done, as you know, let alone moving to another job or getting a job offer, just getting fired and having to leave town because you have to go find work somewhere.
I knew plenty of people who couldn't do that.
Yeah,
right. They would leave one company and then they'd never get a job here again.
Yeah.
And that's where, it was just instilled into me, look, treat everybody with respect and be nice and be good and don't flame the place on your way out and all that stuff.
Don't drop a grenade behind you.
Like I said, there may have been times where they said, look, we need to change up what we're doing here. You guys are done. But it wasn't, get the hell out and never come back again. It was, we could work together down the road. And to these days, some of those people are still, best of friends.
Yeah, but you made most of the choices on your own.
I did.
I mean,
yeah.
you could have left. And
I knew what I wanted to do. And maybe it was a chess game to like, okay, I got to jump the pieces here. Jason's great, but I want to get my own morning show. I'm going to have to go out on my own and do that. And, Frank, it was a gamble, right? We could have fallen on our nose and could have come crawling back. And Jason always said, look, if that doesn't work out, call me, come back. I didn't want to do that though. Yeah. I wanted to succeed on my own merit. And I felt pretty proud that whatever it was of a career we put together, it somehow lasted.
Just imagine what the last 9 or 10 years would have been like if you'd had your own, left-leaning radio program.
Look, I'm so glad that didn't happen. Can we say that right now? Does anybody want to be in this?
No, absolutely no.
Jeez.
Well, God bless you. Brian, thanks for coming in. You're
Frank,
awesome.
It's been a pleasure, man.
I apologize, but not really for the first thing you ever heard me say to you. But that only tells you how much I love you.
I don't remember. I mean, other than snoring on the radio, I don't really remember the first time meeting Jason. But God dang, I've always remembered Frank Boal. I love you, brother. That's so great.
You're the best, pal.
You too, man.
Yeah. God bless you. Continue. Good luck, and good luck with Addie and Danielle and
God, we got a freshman driver now.
Them.
Are you kidding me? A freshman driver? You've been through this before. How do you put up with that?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Don't ask. You've been to parties in my house. Bringing lots of booze. Okay, that's it. And he's Bryan Truta. Another one of the great reasons why there's just something about Kansas City. Don't talk to me about those parties.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization with the mission of documenting the stories that have built our city to inspire and educate generations to come. Our work is being made possible by the generous support of local partners like you. You can help us share these stories by becoming a sponsor today. Visit somethingaboutKC.org to learn more.